Time for more Bridge to Terabithia, number 2. I can't remember where we left off. I think it was, oh yeah. Remember his sisters? He has 4 sisters, and they were all complaining about that they can't ever do anything, and he's the only one who does all the chores, and now they want to go and get some things with their teacher, and they said Daddy promised that he'd give them money. I don't know if you remember that. So I'll just start at the top. Because they're asking to go. Oh, all right, but I ain't got no money to give you. Any money, something whispered inside Jess's head. I know, Mama. We'll just take the $5 Daddy promised us. No more than that. What $5? Oh, Mama, you remember. Ellie's voice was sweeter than a melted Mars bar. Daddy said last week we girls were going to have something for school. Ugh, take it, his mother said angrily, reaching for her cracked final purse on the shelf above the stove. She counted out 5 wrinkled bills. Mama, Brenda was starting again. Can't we have just one more so we'll be 3 each? No. Mama, you can't buy nothing for $2.50. Just one little pack of notebook papers gone up to... No. Ellie got up noisily and began to clear the table. It's your turn to wash, Brenda, she said loudly. Oh, Ellie. Ellie jabbed her with a spoon. Jessie saw that look. Brenda shut up her wine halfway out her rose-lustered lipstick mouth. She wasn't as smart as Ellie, but even she knew not to push Mama too far. Which left Jess to do the work as usual. Mama never sent the babies out to help, although if he worked it right, he could usually get Maybelle to do something. He put his head down on the table. The running had done him in this morning. Through his top ear came the sound of the Timminsons' old Buick. Wants oil, his dad would say, and the happy buzz of voices outside the screen door as Ellie and Brenda squashed in among the 7 Timmonses. All right, Jessie, get your lazy self off that bench. Miss Bessie's bag is probably dragging ground by now, and you still got beans to pick. Lazy? He was the lazy one? He gave his poor dead weight of a head 1 minute more on the tabletop. Jessie! Okay, Mama, I'm going. It was Maybelle who came to tell him in the bean patch that people were moving into the old Perkins place down on the next farm. Jess wiped his hair out of his eyes and squinted. Sure enough, a U-Haul was parked right by the door. One of those big jointed ones. These people had a lot of junk. But they wouldn't last. The Perkins place was one of those ratty old country houses you moved into because you had no decent place to go and moved out of it as quickly as you could. He thought later how peculiar it was that here was probably the biggest thing in his life, and he had just shrugged it off as nothing. The flies were buzzing around his sweating face and shoulders. He dropped the beans into the bucket and swatted with both hands. Get me my shirt, Maybelle. The flies were more important than any U-Haul. Maybelle jogged to the end of the row and picked up his t-shirt from where it had been discarded earlier. She walked back, holding it with 2 fingers way out in front of her. Ew, it stinks, she said, just as Brenda would have. Shut up, he said, and grabbed the shirt away from her. Okay, so I want to make sure that you guys all understand that their family does not have a lot of money, obviously. This is probably a little bit longer ago. The kids are drinking coffee, which is a little bit strange, but that's kind of what they did, especially out in small towns. But it's not too long ago, and they don't have much, obviously they don't have much money. If you notice the part where the mom opened her cracked purse and all she had was 5 bills for the girls to go shopping, which $2.50 would not get you very far right now. So that's just, I wanted to make sure that you were inferring and thinking based on the clues the author is giving us that they don't have very much money. And his 2 older sisters are super snotty. And his Maybelle thinks he's the greatest, and she's the one who's just younger than him. And then the baby sister cries at everything. That's Joyce Ann. And Maybelle worships him, so she usually does whatever he wants her to do. The next chapter is called Leslie Burke. Ellie and Brenda weren't back by 7. Jess had finished all the picking and helped his mother can the beans. She never canned except when it was scalding hot anyhow. And all the boiling turned the kitchen into some kind of hellhole. Of course, her temper had been terrible, and she had screamed at Jess all afternoon and was now too tired to fix any supper. Jess made peanut butter sandwiches for the little girls and himself, and because the kitchen was still hot and almost nauseatingly full of bean smell, the three of them went outside to eat. The U-Haul was still out by the Perkins place. He couldn't see anybody moving outside, so they must have finished unloading. "I hope they have a girl who's 6 or 7, said Maybelle. "I need somebody to play with." "You got Joyce Ann." "I hate Joyce Ann. She's nothing but a baby." Joyce Ann's lip went out. They both watched it tremble. Then her pudgy body shuddered, and she let out a great cry. "Ah! Who's teasing the baby?" his mother yelled out the screen door. Jess sighed and poked the last of his sandwich into Joyce Ann's open mouth. Her eyes went wide and she clamped her jaws down on the unexpected gift. Now maybe he could have some peace. He closed the screen door gently as he entered and slipped past his mother, who was rocking herself in the kitchen chair watching TV. In the room he shared with the little ones, he dug under his mattress and pulled out his pad and pencils. Then, stomach down on the bed, he began to draw. Jess drew the way some people drink whiskey. The piece would start at the top of his muddled brain and then seep down through his tired and tensed up body. Lord, did he love to draw. Animals mostly. Not regular animals like Miss Bessie or chickens, but crazy animals with problems. For some reason, he liked to put his beasts into impossible positions. This one was a hippopotamus just leaving the edge of the cliff, turning over and over. You could tell by the curved lines. In the air toward the sea, below, where surprised fish were leaping goggle-eyed out of the water. There was a balloon over the hippopotamus, where his head should have been, but his bottom actually was. "Oh," it was saying, "I seem to have forgot my glasses." Jess began to smile. If he decided to show it to Maybelle, he would have to explain the joke. But once he did, she would laugh like a live audience on TV. He would like to show his drawings to his dad, but he didn't dare. And here's a picture of him laying on his bed. So it's one more thing that we know about him is that he loves to draw. When he was in first grade, he had told his dad that he wanted to be an artist when he grew up. He thought his dad would be pleased. He wasn't. "What are they teaching in that damn school?" Sorry, there's some bad words. He had asked. "Bunch of old ladies turning my only son into some kind of..." He had stopped on the word, but Jess had gotten the message. It was one you didn't forget, even after 4 years. The devil of it was that none of his regular teachers ever liked his drawings. When they'd catch him scribbling, they'd screech about waste, wasted time, wasted paper, wasted ability. Except Miss Edmonds, the music teacher. She was the only one he dared show anything to, and she'd only been at school 1 year. And then she was only there on Fridays. Miss Edmonds was one of his secrets. He was in love with her. Not the kind of silly stuff Ella and Brendale giggled about on the telephone. This was too real and too deep to talk about, even to think about very much. Her long, swishy black hair and blue, blue eyes. She could play the guitar like a regular recording star, and she had this soft, floaty voice that made Jess squish inside. Lord, she was gorgeous. And she liked him too. One day last winter, he had given her one of his pictures, just shoved it into her hand after class and then ran. The next Friday, she had asked him to stay a minute after class. She said he was unusually talented, and she hoped he wouldn't let anything discourage him, but would keep it up. That meant, Jess believed, that she thought he was the best. It was not the kind of best that counted either at school or at home. It was a genuine kind of best, but he kept this knowledge of it buried inside himself like a pirate's treasure. He was rich, very, very rich, but no one could know about it now except his fellow outlaw, Miss Julia Edmonds. "Sounds like some kind of hippie," his mother had said when Brenda, who had been in 7th grade last year, described Miss Edmonds to her. She probably was. Jess wouldn't argue with that. But he saw her as a beautiful, wild creature who had been caught for a moment in that dirty, old cage of a schoolhouse, perhaps by mistake. But he prayed she'd never get loose and fly away. He managed to endure the whole boring week of school for that 1/2 hour on Friday afternoons when they'd sit on the worn-out rug on the floor of the teacher's room, because there was no other place in the building for Miss Edmonds to spread out all of her stuff, and sing songs like My Beautiful Balloon and This Land is Your Land and Free to Be You and Me and Blowin' in the Wind. And because Mr. Turnell, the principal, insisted, God bless America. Miss Edmonds would play her guitar and let the kids take turns on the auto harp, the triangle, the cymbals, the tambourines, and the bongo drum. Lord, could they ever make a racket. All the teachers hated Fridays, and a lot of the kids pretended to hate Fridays. But Jess knew what fakes they were, sniffing hippie and peacenik. Even though the Vietnam was over now and it was supposed to be okay again to like peace, the kids would make fun of Miss Edmonds' lack of lipstick or the cut of her jeans. She was, of course, the only female teacher anyone had ever seen in Lark Creek Elementary School wearing pants. In Washington and its fancy suburbs, and even in Millsburg, that was okay. But Lark Creek was the backwash of fashion. It took them a long time to accept what everyone could see on their own TVs was okay anywhere else. So that means they're kind of in a town where nobody really knows about fashion or cares about it, and yet Mrs. Edmonds does. And she wears pants instead of like skirts and like shirts that are collared up to here. So that's how I kind of know this is olden day also. And it was taking place probably around the 60s-ish. 70s, Vietnam War is over. So it's kind of back in the time where everyone's like peace and all that good stuff. So I'm going to stop reading right now because it's going to take forever to upload. And we'll listen to number 3 tomorrow. Bye, guys.